It begins with Peter's genius idea. Convinced he's the next Einstein, Peter decides the world needs self-toasting bread. His solution? Wrapping bread in tinfoil and microwaving it. Brilliant, right? Wrong. This genius move results in a neighborhood-wide blackout. But ever the optimist, Peter tells Lois, it's not a blackout, it's an opportunity for candles. As neighbors grumble around in darkness, Peter lights a candle and aims to toast the bread using its flickering flame. Next up is Peter's new tattoo. He figures that there are some things in life you just can't live without. For Peter, it's cheeseburgers. He gets a tattoo of one right on his belly. With a sly grin, he proclaims, this way, I'll always look like I'm eating. And when he flexes, the tattoo jiggles, convincing Stewie to dub it, the most horrifying optical illusion of all time. Imagine that. Then, Peter decides he'll be a hero by volunteering to direct traffic during a parade. Surely this endeavor will go off without a hitch? All goes well until the ice cream truck arrives. Peter's eyes turn to saucers and his arms wave wildly, directing the entire parade into a disastrous marching band pile-up. Peter ends up in the tuba section, performing a spontaneous jig as chaos reigns around him. Building on his streak of brilliance, Peter decides to impress Lois with a fancy dinner display. He dons a chef's hat and presents his signature dish, spaghetti topped with potato chips and drizzled with chocolate syrup. I call it fusion cuisine, he declares proudly. Brian takes a whiff and walks away, leaving Peter bewildered but undeterred. Finally, Peter's backyard pool triumph ends his series of misadventures. Determined that summer should be spent lounging, he buys an inflatable pool that's impossibly small. Cramming himself in, snorkel adorning his face, he splashes about vigorously. His pride unshaken, he announces to the entire neighborhood, who needs the beach when you've got the world's biggest bathtub? Peter Griffin, that lovable buffoon with ideas as grand as they are disastrous, never ceases to entertain with his ill-conceived yet hilarious endeavors. Peter Griffin sat at his favorite watering hole, the Drunken Clam, with his friends Quagmire, Cleveland, and Joe. He was eagerly awaiting his usual order, the triple bacon cheeseburger, but unbeknownst to him, the cook had accidentally swapped it for a vegan burger. Peter took a giant bite, the kind of bite that made those around duck for potential flying bits of salad. He chewed with his eyes closed, savoring the flavors that didn't quite seem right. Suddenly, his eyes flew open. I'm poisoned, he yelled, his face turning an unflattering shade of green. Peter sprinted out of the bar, convinced he was under attack by health food. He ran through the streets of Quahog, shouting that the only cure was more bacon. The townsfolk watched in confusion as Peter's bacon crusade led him to every fast food joint in town. His stomach now stuffed with enough cholesterol to supply Quahogs. With new patients for a year, Peter returned home, claiming victory over the nefarious bean patty. I'll never trust vegetables again, he vowed, mouth full of greasy burger meat. The next morning, thoroughly healed from his traumatic dietary mishap, Peter's mind was buzzing with the excitement of ideas. He'd stayed up late watching too many documentaries about wildlife and decided his backyard was in dire need of exotic creatures. During breakfast, Lois walked out to find a goat affectionately chewing her roses, a snake coiled around the garden gnome, and Peter attempting to coax a kangaroo into wearing a sweater with a zoo boss written on it. Somehow, the kangaroo took on more than just the sweater, it quickly became the dominant force in the Griffin household. Meanwhile, Peter spent his time trying to get it to kick soccer balls as the neighbors complained about their missing Christmas decorations. The domesticated chaos gave Peter another bright idea. With a wild glint in his eye, he created a TikTok account for them and began filming the dangerous animal-related stunts. Like trying to wrestle an egg from the goose's nest, or sliding down the roof on a cookie sheet while holding 2 cups of coffee. But instead of gaining respect as a daredevil, Peter went viral for all the humiliating reasons, like tripping over his own shoelaces while fleeing the goat who developed a taste for pillow stuffing. Not dissuaded, Peter shifted gears. He moved away from uploading viral stunts to producing a sandwich out of whatever was lying around the house. But as luck, or Quahog's unique charm, would have it, the sandwich was haunted by the spirit of an indignant deli worker who refused to let Peter eat his creation until union wages were properly debated. Each time Peter approached the monstrous SUV, it let out a wailing protest, leaving him both hungry and utterly confused at having to negotiate labor laws with a sandwich. Finally, in an unrelated incident, Peter was once again peering into the night sky, convinced the stars were winking at him. When he saw lights weaving erratically overhead, Peter assumed it was either a UFO or Brian testing his new drone skills. It was, much to the casual observer's disbelief, an actual spaceship, and it hurled a tiny alien, lovingly dubbed Squishy, right onto Peter's porch. In no time, Squishy had integrated into Peter's world, learning to shotgun beers, despite lacking a digestive system, and unknowingly causing intergalactic chaos by accidentally beaming Joe's police car into deep space during a tipsy moment. Peter shrugged it off, noting that Quahog's best was always a little alien to begin with, and continued his ever-chaotic adventures, ensuring life around him remained anything but ordinary. Once upon a slippery night at the Drunken Clam, Peter, the bearer of questionable vocal talent, decided to enthrall the audience with his rendition of the timeless classic, Bohemian Rhapsody. Armed with determination and a few beers, Peter stepped onto the stage. Gripping the microphone like a pirate holds onto gold. It was his time to shine, or more accurately, to blind. With the first note, it became evident that Peter was navigating a musical maze made of wrong turns and dead ends. The jukebox, unable to handle the tsunami of off-pitch harmonics, made its escape attempt, wobbling and crashing into the bar top as if it had given up on music altogether. Meanwhile, Quagmire, who was still recovering from Peter's last attempt at a karaoke, fashioned emergency ear protectors from nearby beer mugs, hoping to preserve some semblance of his auditory functions. Peter's pizza delivery adventure feeling the urge to conquer new territories outside the realm of public embarrassment, Peter embarked on a brave yet foolhardy mission as a pizza delivery boy. Donning his pizza hat at a rakish angle, he took to the streets with his first delivery. However, the tantalizing aroma of pepperoni proved too potent, and soon the pizza box was half empty, its contents devoured during transit. With a stroke of culinary genius, Peter piled French fries on top of the remaining slices, calling it a surprise topping. Alas, the customer was not impressed, particularly because it had been an order for a gluten-free diet. Peter was last seen frantically speeding away, chased by a distraught gluten-free advocate. Peter's DIY roller coaster, ever the inventor, or rather, the exaggerator, Peter decided to turn his backyard into a mind-boggling mini amusement park. He constructed what he claimed to be a roller coaster using old planks of wood and a garden hose that vaguely resembled a track. Little Stewie, forever adventurous and resistant to common sense, volunteered to test this masterpiece. With a defiant cheer, Peter launched Stewie on the roller coaster like a human cannonball. The ride ended swiftly in the neighbor's pool, much to the shock of everyone involved. The neighbor, now damply inconvenienced, suggested Peter might want to reconsider his choice of construction materials. Peter versus the smart toilet. Lois, ever the pioneer of technological advancement, purchased a smart toilet. Peter, intrigued by this loose straight from the future, couldn't resist the urge to try it out. His curiosity quickly turned to terror when the toilet's voice-activated mechanism announced, "Too heavy, please get off this throne." Feeling betrayed by plumbing, Peter abandoned the porcelain palace in favor of the more forgiving bushes in the backyard, hoping there'd be no voice-activated judgments. Peter's ghost hunting escapade. In a bid for internet fame, Peter rebranded himself as the next big name in ghost hunting, complete with a vlog filmed under the shroud of night. Mid-hunt, equipped with a flashlight and comically oversized goggles, Peter was frozen by a spectral sight, swaying eerily in the dark. It was, however, not a spirit of the beyond but Meg, adorned in a face mask that glittered like an alien visage. Overcome by horror and the need to flee, Peter sprinted off to the grocery store, clad only in a towel, because who has time to change when escaping specters of the bathroom kind? It seemed that wherever Peter went, chaos followed, and his life was an unending comedy of errors that left everyone touched by it helplessly entertained. Peter's pet snake. In a heroic attempt to bolster his home's security, Peter decides to adopt an intimidating creature. A pet snake. The idea seemed brilliant in theory. No burglar could ever want to tussle with a slithering terror. However, little did Peter know that his new companion wasn't as keen on this partnership. The snake, an expert in identifying threats, quickly labeled Peter as the top contender. That night, Peter went to bed, blissfully unaware that his supposedly fearsome reptile had planned an escape. Nestled cozily in Peter's pants drawer, the snake found solace away from its perceived predator. Come dawn, Peter, feeling rather chipper, opened his drawer only to be greeted by the startled hiss of his new roommate. The ensuing screams from Peter could probably have caused the local burglar community to consider the neighborhood as loud enough without their involvement. Peter's job as a clown. In his quest to diversify his talents, Peter took a gig as a birthday clown. With dreams of being the star of every birthday bash, Peter was determined to master the ancient clown art of balloon animals. Unfortunately, during his crash course on YouTube, he seemed to only absorb the part where clowns entertain by making funny faces. The big day arrived. Makeup on, bright clothing dazzling, Peter was ready. Or so he believed. As he handed out twisted blobs of balloon, he declared with unbounding confidence, "It's a modern art giraffe." At first, the kids' recorded reactions were awestruck silence, followed rapidly by piercing cries of disillusionment. Peter, feeling the weight of his clown career crumbling like forgotten cake crumbs in a windy park, decided there was only one logical course of action: to eat his body weight in cake. Peter's fitness challenge. Peter's foray into the world of fitness was prompted by a misguided belief that the finishing line of a local 5K race would lead him straight to a hot dog stand. Armed with this imagination-fueled motivation, he laced up his shoes and set off. But as the race began, reality set in. Mile 1 didn't offer any steamed wieners or buns, but rather stretching ahead, pavement for far too many steps. Distraught at the revelation, Peter sought refuge under a shady tree. Seeing his vision of hot dog glory vanish, he resigned to munching on the snacks he brought it just in case. By the time the race volunteers found him, Peter was happily bogged down in wrappers, obliviously describing his alternate route to finish at a non-existent wiener wonderland. Peter the babysitter, babysitting for the notoriously imaginative Stewie, seemed simple enough. Lois, needing a break, entrusted Peter with baby duty, full of unwavering confidence in his parental prowess. Initially, Peter lived large in his babysitting role, constructing a pillow fort kingdom, worthy of recognition in Forts 101. However, structural integrity took a back seat to his ambitions. As soon as Stewie entered, the fort collapsed spectacularly. Lois returned to find Stewie giggling in a mountain of luxury and Peter's muffled shout, "I'm fine. The king lives." Stuck under cushions, Peter declared his kingdom unbeaten as Stewie returned to his sophisticated plotting and giggles played out as the kingdom anthem. Peter had always been the person who charged headfirst into whimsical ventures, often leading to bizarre outcomes. His first foray into entrepreneurship was in his garage, which he aptly named Peter's Pizza Palace. The concept was enticing, but the execution was more of a comedic horror film. Armed with his cookbook and limited culinary skills, Peter embarked on his doughy mission. One evening, dripping with enthusiasm, Peter attempted to bake his first batch of pizza. He mustered all his love for cooking and neglected all directives the cookbook provided. The majestic garage quickly became a fiery inferno, thanks to Peter's inexplicable habit of setting ovens to their maximum temperature. The pizzas, turned into charred relics, soon became home to toppings that defy even the wildest culinary imagination: anchovies mixed with jelly beans. Yet, among this chaos, Peter managed to secure a 5-star Yelp review from an unexpected visitor, a raccoon. The critter had managed to sneak inside, devoured what was supposed to be Peter's dinner, and evidently savored the unique blend of disaster toppings. Not long after, Peter jumped into another venture, yoga. With Lois's encouragement, Peter plopped himself down in a yoga class, hoping to impress her with newfound flexibility. Alas, elegance was not Peter's forte. The simplest of stretches became his Achilles heel as he toppled over like a bowling pin. In true Peter fashion, this tumble was accompanied by a colossal fart, reverberating through the serene hall. Surprisingly, the room erupted into applause, mistaking the flatulence for a revolutionary breathing technique. Next on Peter's list was his ambition to work from home by building a treehouse office. The construction was haphazard, relying more on motivation than actual skill. Once completed, Peter found himself not working at all, but rather entertained the local squirrel community with endless snack offerings. His breaks were frequent and lengthy, often interrupted by squirrels who began bringing more of their furry kin. One day, Lois, curious and concerned, ascended the seemingly perilous treehouse. To her surprise, Peter was not alone. The squirrels had organized themselves in delightful chaos, crowning Peter as their undisputed king, their monarchy led by a human. Raunching a stranger's wedding was next on Peter's itinerary. The motivation was simple: free shrimp. Peter bounded in, dressed to not impress, grabbed the microphone, and turned the ceremony into an unforgettable event. His singing was a symphony of disharmony, but his enthusiasm was infectious, sparking a conga line that surged violently, ending with a cake-filled explosion. In earnest glee, Peter declared, "Best wedding ever." Peter concluded his misadventures with the creation of a time capsule, a gift for future Peter. Inside was the quintessential Peter treasure: beers, old TV remotes, and a precious sandwich. Satisfied, he buried his bounty. Yet, his impatience was legendary, and future Peter would not enjoy his inheritance.